Zimmerman and West's 1975 paper is regarded as a significant sociolinguistic study. This is due to the ongoing debate in sociolinguistics as to whether there is a relationship between language and gender. Do men and women speak differently, and if they do, why?
So how does Zimmerman and West's paper fit into the debate? Well, within the group of linguists who do believe men and women speak differently, there are three contrasting perspectives. The deficit model proposes that men dominate over women in conversation and that this arises from women possessing inferior attributes in terms of their language use. The difference model is based on the idea that men and women are inherently different. Like the deficit model, it doesn't imply that one usage is superior to the other. Finally, the dominance model suggests that variation is due to a historical social order. The dominating interactive style of men relates to their tendency to occupy the most powerful roles in society. Although conclusions made from Zimmerman and West research supports the dominance model, it is worth keeping in mind how their ideas fit into the wider debate.
Professors Don Zimmerman and Candace West of the University of California have produced a large volume of work into language and gender over their academic careers. The paper we're going to discuss in this presentation describes the research and findings of one of their many studies.
Zimmerman and West were looking into the presence of uncooperative interactive features such as interruptions in conversation. They wanted to find out whether the gender of conversation participants affected the use of these features.
They collected data through audio recordings made between participants in routine settings such as coffee shops participating in everyday chit-chat. This allowed Zimmerman and West to draw conclusions as to how these uncooperative interactive features were used in real life.
The participants were white, middle class and aged between 20 and 35. They recorded conversations between both same-sex pairs and mixed-sex pairs of people.
They identified instances of simultaneous speech which displayed noticeable patterns of overlapping, interrupting and delayed minimal responses. Definitions of these terms can be found in the key term box below the video. They also timed the silences between utterances and identified instances in which silences were particularly long.
They observed three main patterns in how men and women use these interactive features.
They found that overlaps and interruptions were distributed equally between participants of the same-sex conversations, whereas in mixed-sex conversations, virtually all interruptions and overlaps came from male speakers.
They argue that if interruptions are viewed as a purposeful violation of speech, then male speakers tend to show disregard for what female speakers are saying.
Zimmerman and West found that there was an equal distribution of silences between utterances by the participants of the same-sex conversation. However, in mixed-sex conversations, women were more silent between utterances than men.
They also found that 62% of female silences between utterances occurred when the male speaker either interrupted them, overlapped their speech, or used a delayed minimal response. They believed this showed that when men respond to female speech with uncooperative interactive features, women become unsure as to their partner's interest in the topic. As a result, they pause more between utterances and reduce their participation in the conversation.
Zimmerman and West found that when interrupted by a man, women fell silent before speaking again, whereas men picked up from where they left off. Men were also found to make explicit negative sanctions, for example, responding to an interruption with "let me finish" in order to regain control of the conversation.
Zimmerman and West say that men assert the right to control a topic by resisting input from women and do so without repercussions.
Zimmerman and West say that men deny equal status to women as conversational partners. They produce interruptions and delayed minimal responses to control the topic of conversation. Their explanation as to their findings fits in with the dominance model discussed earlier.
However, there has been further research in language and gender which challenges Zimmerman and West's research and the dominance model. Key works include Janet Hyde's gender similarities hypothesis and Deborah Cameron's book The Myth of Mars and Venus. Both claimed that when tested, the differences between men and women's language were marginal. They argued that the more linguists investigate similarities, the more they will find that difference models are based on stereotypes.